China. It's big, it's old, and it has a serious problem with staying together. If you look at world history, most civilizations rise, have a good run, and then die. Rome? Gone. Ancient Egypt? Now a tourist trap. The Mayans? Don't ask. But China? China is the zombie of civilizations. It dies. It breaks apart. It explodes into a million tiny warlord pieces. And then, it just respawns. For 5,000 years, this place has been stuck in the world's most violent loop of order and chaos. Today we are speedrunning through 50 centuries of emperors, eunuchs, philosophers, and peasants who just wanted to farm in peace but kept getting drafted to build giant walls. From the mythical kings who fought floods, to the guy who drank mercury to live forever, spoiler, it didn't work. This is the entire, messy, broken and beautiful history of China. Buckle up. First, let's talk about the map. Because geography is destiny, and China's geography is basically a fortress. To the west, giant mountains. To the north, a desert that wants to kill you. To the east, the biggest ocean on Earth. This meant two things. One, ancient China was incredibly isolated. They thought they were the center of the world. Literally. Zhongguo, China, means Middle Kingdom. Everyone else? Just barbarians wandering around the edges. Two, once you're inside the fortress, you're stuck with everyone else. Civilization spawned around two main rivers. The Yangtze in the south, great for rice, very wet. And the Yellow River in the north, great for wheat, and also great for drowning everyone. They call the Yellow River the cradle of civilization, but its nickname is China's sorrow. Why? Because it floods. A lot. Like, wipe out entire cities and change the course of history a lot. This brings us to the first, maybe mythical, dynasty, the Xia. Legend says a guy named Yu the Great spent 13 years controlling the floods. He worked so hard, he walked past his own house 3 times and heard his baby crying but didn't go in. That is the ultimate Sigma grind set. Because he tamed the water, they made him king. This set a precedent for the next 4,000 years. To rule China, you must control the water. The Xia might have been a myth, but the next guys, the Shang 1600 BC, were definitely real. We know this because they loved writing on turtle shells and cow bones. These are oracle bones. Basically, the emperor would scratch a question like, will it rain, or should I invade my neighbor, on a bone, burn it until it cracked, and then a wizard would read the cracks. It was the ancient version of a magic 8-ball. The Shang were hardcore. They mastered bronze casting, built massive cities, and practiced human sacrifice on a scale that would make a horror movie director blush. When a king died, hundreds of servants were invited to join him in the afterlife. But being a brutal, bone-burning tyrant eventually gets old. Enter the Zhou. The Zhou defeated the Shang, but they had a PR problem. You see, back then, the king was essentially a god figure. You can't just kill the king. That's illegal. So the Zhou invented the greatest political marketing campaign in human history, the Mandate of Heaven. Here is how it works. It's a cheat code for revolution. The sky, heaven, picks the emperor. As long as the emperor is a good guy, the harvest is good, and the people are happy, he keeps the mandate. But if he starts drinking too much wine, ignoring the floods, or being a jerk, heaven gets angry. Heaven sends earthquakes, famines, and peasant rebellions. This is a sign that the mandate has been lost. And if you, yes, you, a random warlord, can overthrow him, well, that just proves you have the mandate now. The Zhou system was feudalism. The king gave land to his buddies, dukes. The dukes promised to protect the king. It worked great. Until the dukes realized they had big armies and the king didn't. Eventually, the Zhou king was just a mascot. Real power moved to hundreds of tiny states. This period is called the Spring and Autumn period. Sounds poetic, right? It wasn't. It was a battle royale. By 475 BC, we entered the Warring States period. 7 big kingdoms spent 200 years trying to murder each other to become the one true king. It was total chaos. But ironically, chaos is great for innovation. When everyone is dying, people start asking, how do we fix this? This led to the 100 schools of thought. Contestant number 1, Confucius, Kong 2. His vibe, respect your elders. Confucius looked at the chaos and said, we are a mess because nobody knows their place. He wanted structure. Father rules son. Husband rules wife. Ruler rules subject. If everyone follows the script and performs the rituals, society works. He was basically the strict Asian dad of philosophy. Contestant number 2, Daoism, Lao Tzu. His vibe, just chill bro. Taoists said, trying to fix things is the problem. Just go with the flow, the Tao. They wanted to be like water, soft, yielding, but powerful. Government? The less, the better. Contestant number 3, Sun Tzu. His vibe, all warfare is based on deception. While the philosophers argued, Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War. He didn't care about rituals or nature. He cared about winning. But there was a fourth philosophy brewing in the West. One that didn't care about morals or chilling. It was called legalism. And the kingdom of Qin loved it. The kingdom of Qin, pronounced Qin. Yes, that's where the name China comes from. Had a simple strategy, agriculture plus war. If you weren't farming, you were fighting. In 221 BC, the Qin king, Ying Zheng, conquered the last rival. He looked at the title king and said, nah, that's too small for me. He combined the words for god and ruler to create a new title, Huangdi, emperor. He became Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. This guy was efficient, terrifyingly efficient. He looked at this mess of different languages, currencies, and measurements, and said, stop. He standardized everything. Weights? Standardized. Currency? Standardized. The width of cart axles? Standardized, so they fit in the road ruts. Writing? Standardized. If you used the old writing, well, you wouldn't need to write anymore, because your hands would be gone. He followed legalism. The rule was simple, break the law, get punished. Neighbor broke the law, and you didn't report him? You get punished too. Scholars started saying, hey, in the old days, kings were nicer. Qin Shi Huang's solution? Burn the books. Bury the scholars. Problem solved. Please do not try this at home. He also connected the northern walls to keep out the Xiongnu, the ancestors of the Mongols. This was the beta version of the Great Wall. It was built by peasants, soldiers, and criminals. Legend says if you died on the job, they just buried you in the wall. Great insulation, I guess? But despite conquering the world, Qin Shi Huang was terrified of one thing, death. He spent his later years hunting for the elixir of life. He sent ships of children to find magic islands. They probably landed in Japan and decided not to come back. Doctors gave him magic pills containing mercury. Yes, mercury, the toxic liquid metal. So, the thing he took to live forever is likely what killed him. Irony is cruel. Before he died, he commissioned the Terracotta Army, 8,000 unique clay soldiers to protect him in the afterlife. Because if you pissed off everyone on Earth, you're definitely going to need bodyguards in hell. In 210 BC, he died. He thought his dynasty would last 10,000 generations. It lasted 15 years. As soon as he was gone, the people, who were tired of starving, building walls, and being executed for littering, grabbed their pitchforks. China broke apart again. But the blueprint was set. The idea of a unified China was now stuck in everyone's head. And the next guys? They would figure out how to make it stick. So the Qin fell apart. Usually, this is where the nobles take back over. But in 202 BC, something crazy happened. A peasant, a literal nobody named Lu Bang, beat everyone else and declared himself emperor. He started the Han Dynasty. If the Qin was the strict, abusive father who locked you in your room, the Han was the cool uncle who let you have a little bit of freedom, but still checked your report card. The Han figured out the secret sauce of ruling China. Confucianism on the outside, legalism on the inside. They told the people, hey, we are all a big family. Respect the emperor like your dad. That's the Confucian part. But if you rebel, we will still cut your head off. That's the legalism part. It worked brilliantly. The Han lasted 400 years, roughly the same as the Roman Empire. And just like Rome, they defined who the people were. To this day, the majority of Chinese people call themselves Han Chinese. This is when China went global. Emperor Wu of Han, the martial emperor, got tired of fighting nomads. So he sent a guy named Zhang Qian to the west to find allies. Zhang Qian didn't find many allies, but he found something better, customers. The Silk Road was open for business. China sold silk, which Rome loved so much they nearly went bankrupt buying it. In return, China got grapes, walnuts, strong horses, and a new religion from India called Buddhism. They also invented paper. Before this, you had to write on heavy bamboo strips. Imagine trying to carry your homework when it weighs 50 pounds. Paper changed everything. Bureaucracy exploded. Now you could write down everything. But, as the dynastic cycle predicts, good times make weak men. The emperors stopped ruling and started partying. The eunuchs, servants who were missing some parts, started stealing power. And by 220 AD, the Han broke. And this break wasn't just a crack. It was a legendary shatter. Welcome to the Three Kingdoms period. If you've played Dynasty Warriors, you know what's up. If you haven't, imagine Game of Thrones, but with fewer dragons and more guys with magnificent beards screaming strategy at each other. The Han Empire split into three main factions: Wei, Shu, and Wu. In the north we have Cao Cao, the villain, or the hero depending on who you ask. He was a brilliant poet, a genius general, and absolutely ruthless. He controlled the puppet emperor. His motto? I'd rather betray the world than let the world betray me. Nice guy. In the west, we have Liu Bei, the underdog. He was a distant relative of the Han emperor, or so he said. He sold straw sandals for a living. He and his two bros, Guan Yu, the god of war, and Zhang Fei, swore an oath in a peach garden to die on the same day. Spoiler, they didn't die on the same day, but it was very romantic. Liu Bei had the smartest guy in history on his team, Zhuge Liang. Legend says this guy could summon the wind, borrow arrows from the enemy, and defeat armies just by playing a lute on top of a city wall. In reality, he was just a really good logistics manager. But myths are more fun. The climax was the Battle of Red Cliff. Cao Cao brought 800,000 men to crush the south. The south had maybe 50,000 guys and some fire ships. Result? The south burned Cao Cao's fleet. The underdog won. China remained divided. This period was bloody. The population dropped from 50 million to 16 million. That's not a war, that's an apocalypse. Eventually, all three kingdoms got tired and were conquered by the Sima family, who started the Qin dynasty. But nobody cares about the Qin, because then, the barbarians broke in. For the next 300 years, northern China became a mosh pit of nomadic tribes, while the Chinese elites fled south to write poetry about how sad they were. Buddhism got huge because, well, when life is constant suffering, a religion that says life is suffering sounds pretty relatable. Then, in 581, the Sui dynasty reunited China. Think of the Sui as Qin dynasty too. Ruthless? Yes. Short-lived? Yes. Did they build something massive? Oh yeah. They built the Grand Canal, linking the Yellow River and the Yangtze. Basically, they connected the breadbasket of the north with the rice bowl of the south. This canal is the spine of China's economy even today, but the Sui emperor worked the peasants so hard that, you guessed it, they rebelled and killed him. Enter the Tang. The Tang dynasty, 618 to 907. If you could travel back in time to China, go here. This was the Golden Age, the cosmopolitan era. The capital, Chang'an, was the biggest city in the world. 1 million people. You could walk down the street and see Persians, Arabs, Indians, and Koreans. You could buy spices, watch exotic dancers, and read the best poetry ever written. It was the New York City of the 7th century. The Tang was so progressive that they even had the only female emperor in 5,000 years, Wu Zetian. She started as a concubine, seduced the emperor, then seduced his son, framed the empress for murder, and eventually just said, "Fine, I'll do it myself." Historians, who were all men, hated her. They wrote stories about her being a demon. But actually, she was a great ruler. She promoted people based on talent, not family name. She expanded the empire. She was essentially the ultimate girl boss, just with more executions. The Tang loved art. The famous poet Li Bai wrote thousands of poems. Legend says he died because he was so drunk on a boat that he tried to hug the reflection of the moon in the water. And drowned. That is the most poetic, Tang dynasty way to go out. But remember the cycle? Good times create weak men. Emperor Xuanzong fell in love with a concubine named Yang Guifei. He loved her so much he ignored his job. He let a general named An Lushan take control of the army. And Lushan was distinct. He was incredibly obese, reportedly weighing over 300 lbs, but could do a traditional whirling dance perfectly. The emperor thought he was hilarious. Oh, look at the funny fat general dancing. Well, the funny fat general gathered 150,000 soldiers and launched the An Lushan rebellion. This rebellion broke the Tang's back. Millions died. The glorious capital was sacked. The Tang technically survived for another century, but they were zombies. The warlords were back, and soon, China would shatter again. But this time, the pieces would be picked up by someone very unexpected, someone who liked horses, and conquering the entire known universe. After the Tang fell, China broke apart again, 5 dynasties period, but let's skip that mess. In 960, the Song dynasty put the pieces back together. The Song were the nerds of Chinese history. Militarily, they were terrible. They lost wars to everyone. Their strategy for national defense was basically, here is a bag of money, please don't kill us. But economically, they were centuries ahead of Europe. The Song economy was booming. They invented paper money because carrying thousands of copper coins was giving everyone back problems. They invented the magnetic compass, so they knew exactly which direction they were running away from. And most importantly, they invented gunpowder. At first, they used it for fireworks to scare away evil spirits. Then they realized, wait, this also scares away humans. They built flamethrowers, grenades, and early cannons. With all this tech and money, the Song should have been invincible. But remember the geography trap? To the north, the ultimate boss fight was spawning. The Mongols. Under Genghis Khan, they united the tribes. The Song looked at the Mongols and thought, hey, let's pay these guys to fight our other enemies. This is a classic blunder. Never hire a tiger to catch a wolf. Because after the tiger eats the wolf, guess who's next? It took the Mongols decades, but in 1279, Genghis's grandson, Kublai Khan, finished the job. For the first time in history, all of China was conquered by foreigners. Welcome to the Yuan dynasty. Kublai Khan was actually kind of a weeaboo for Chinese culture. He wanted to be a legitimate Chinese emperor. He built a new capital called Dadu, modern-day Beijing. But don't get it twisted. The Mongols ran a strict racial caste system. 1. Mongols, top tier. 2. Central Asians, tax collectors. 3. Northern Chinese. 4. Southern Chinese, bottom tier, basically 80% of the population. They abolished the civil service exams. The message was clear, we have horses, you have rice. We are in charge. This is when Marco Polo showed up. He traveled from Venice to Beijing. He saw paper money, coal, black stones that burn, and the massive cities. When he went back to Europe and wrote a book, nobody believed him. They called his book The Million Lies. Europeans were living in mud huts while China had a postal service with 1,400 stations. The gap was embarrassing. Kublai Khan was on a roll, but then he tried to invade Japan. Twice. Both times, a massive typhoon destroyed his fleet. The Japanese called it kamikaze, divine wind. This failure, combined with huge inflation, they printed too much paper money, classic mistake, weakened the Mongols. Plus, the Black Death, plague, started hitting. The mandate of heaven checked out. In 1368, a peasant uprising kicked the Mongols back to the steppes. The guy who led the rebellion was Zhu Yuanzhang. He started as a starving orphan beggar monk. He ended as the Hongwu emperor of the Ming dynasty. This is the ultimate rags to riches story. Because he grew up poor, he hated the rich. He hated corruption. And he was paranoid. He executed 100,000 people because he thought they were plotting against him. If you worked for him, you brought a coffin to work, just in case. His son, the Yongle emperor, moved the capital back to Beijing and built the Forbidden City. A palace with 9,999 rooms. Why not 10,000? Because only heaven has 10,000 rooms, and you don't want to make the landlord upstairs jealous. The Ming wanted to flex on the world. They sent Admiral Zheng He on 7 massive voyages. These weren't exploration trips. They were look at how rich we are trips. His ships were 400 feet long. They were floating cities. He sailed to India, Arabia, and Africa. He brought back a giraffe. The emperor thought it was a kailan, a mythical beast, and was very pleased. But then, something tragic happened. The Confucian scholars argued that these trips were a waste of money. Why do we need to go out there? We are the Middle Kingdom. We have everything. Also, the Mongols were knocking on the door again. So, the Ming made a fateful decision. They burned the fleet. They banned private sea trade. They turned inward. Instead of conquering the seas, they focused on the wall. Almost all the Great Wall you see in tourist photos today? That's Ming architecture. They locked themselves in their fortress. While Europe was starting the age of discovery and industrial revolution, China hit the pause button. By 1644, the Ming were broke, corrupt, and facing an Ice Age famine. A peasant rebel army approached Beijing. The last Ming emperor walked up a hill behind the Forbidden City and hanged himself from a tree. He left a note, "My officials are traitors, but don't hurt the people." Narrator voice, "They definitely hurt the people. Because the gates of the Great Wall weren't broken down. They were opened from the inside by a general who let the Manchus in. The Manchus swept in, took the throne, and started the Qing dynasty, the final dynasty. But this time, the threat wouldn't come from the north or the west. It would come from the ocean. And they wouldn't be bringing giraffes, they would be bringing opium." The Qing dynasty, 1644 to 1912, started with a haircut. The Manchus were foreigners. To show who was boss, they forced every Chinese man to wear the Q hairstyle. The rule was simple: keep your hair and lose your head, or lose your hair and keep your head. Fashion has never been so high stakes. At first, the Qing were incredibly successful. Under emperors Kangxi and Qianlong, China tripled in size. They conquered Tibet, Xinjiang, and Mongolia. The population exploded to 400 million. China was producing 30% of the world's GDP. They were the factory of the world. Sound familiar? Europeans were obsessed with Chinese tea, silk, and porcelain. But the Qing emperor had a rule: we don't need your European junk, you pay us in silver. Only silver. Britain was going broke buying tea. They faced a massive trade deficit. They needed to find something the Chinese wanted to buy. They tried selling clocks. China said no thanks. They tried selling wool. China said it's too hot. Then, they found it. Drugs. Specifically, opium. The British started smuggling opium from India into China. Suddenly, millions of Chinese were addicted. Silver started flowing out of China to pay for the drugs. The Qing emperor was furious. He sent a guy named Lin Zexu to Canton. Lin was a Chad. He confiscated 20,000 chests of opium, mixed it with lime and salt, and flushed it into the ocean. He essentially flushed Britain's wallet down the toilet. Britain responded with the First Opium War, 1839. It wasn't a war. It was a massacre. The British had steamships and modern artillery. The Qing had bows, arrows, and outdated cannons that couldn't even swivel. China lost. Badly. They had to sign the Treaty of Nanking. They gave up Hong Kong. They opened up ports. They paid a huge fine. This kicked off the century of humiliation. As if foreign invasions weren't enough, China decided to destroy itself from the inside. Again. Enter Hong Xiuquan. After failing the civil service exam 4 times, we've all been there, he had a nervous breakdown. He woke up and decided he was the younger brother of Jesus Christ. Yep. He started the Taiping Rebellion. This wasn't a small cult. Millions of people joined him. They conquered Nanjing and ruled for 14 years. It took the Qing government, with help from Western mercenaries, over a decade to crush them. The death toll? 20 to 30 million people. That's like World War I, but happening entirely within a few provinces. It is one of the deadliest conflicts in human history, and most people in the West have never heard of it. The Qing was dying. The woman running the show was Empress Dowager Cixi. She's a controversial figure. Some say she tried to modernize, others say she was a power-hungry tyrant who spent the Navy's budget on a fancy marble boat for her summer palace. Spoiler, the marble boat didn't float, and neither did the Navy. In 1900, the Boxer Rebellion happened. A group of martial artists tried to punch bullets. It didn't work. 8 foreign nations invaded Beijing and looted the Forbidden City. By 1911, everyone had had enough. A revolution led by Sun Yat-sen broke out. On February 12, 1912, the last emperor, Puyi, abdicated. He was 6 years old. Just like that, 2,000 years of imperial rule ended. No more sons of heaven. But if you thought peace was coming, have you been paying attention to this video? The Republic of China was a mess. It immediately shattered into the warlord era. For decades, warlords with cool nicknames like the Dogmeat General and the Christian General fought for control. Then came the Civil War. Chiang Kai-shek, nationalists, versus Mao Zedong, communists. They paused briefly to fight the Japanese in World War II, which was horrific. But as soon as World War II ended, they went right back to fighting each other. In 1949, Mao won. Chiang fled to Taiwan. Chairman Mao stood at Tiananmen Gate and declared the founding of the People's Republic of China. The rest, as they say, is modern history. From the famine and chaos of the early years to the explosive economic growth of the last 30 years. China went from a broken, humiliated nation to a global superpower in a single lifetime. It's the greatest comeback story ever told. So, what did we learn from 5,000 years? We learned that China is resilient. No matter how hard it breaks, it always puts itself back together. We learned that geography is a trap, unity is fragile, and chaos is inevitable. The ancient Chinese historians believed that history is a circle, a dynastic cycle: rise, peak, decay, collapse, rebirth. Today, China is in a rise phase. The economy is huge. The influence is global. But if history teaches us one thing, it's that nothing lasts forever. The mandate of heaven is a heavy crown to wear. Will the cycle continue? Or has modern technology finally broken the loop? Only time, and maybe the next 5,000 years, will tell. Thanks for watching. If you want to know how a guy who failed his exams 4 times started a war that killed 20 million people, click this video right here. And don't forget to subscribe, or you might lose the mandate of heaven. See ya.